Hello, my name is Lainey Feingold, and I am here to talk about collaboration skills and strategies to advance accessibility. I'm a disability rights lawyer and an author and a public speaker based in Berkeley, California. I've been in the digital accessibility space since 1995, and in that entire time, I have tried to work in collaboration with public sector, with private sector, with the disability community front and center in order to advance digital accessibility in lots of different ways. So on my title slide here, I have the title of this gathering, which is Accessible Canada, Accessible World Conference. So I'm really happy to be sharing some of what I've learned about collaboration and how it works with the gathering in Montreal on May 27, 28, 2024. I hope this talk will be relevant to several of the streams of the conference: inclusive decision-making, innovation in standards and policy, accessible and equitable communications. I think all can benefit from an attitude and a commitment to collaboration over conflict. So let's get started. Why collaboration? I've illustrated this slide with a picture of a smiling Black woman in business attire leaning across the table, shaking hands, obviously just made a deal and feels good about it. Collaboration, speaking from my own experience, makes people around the table feel good about what they're doing. It's very different than conflict, both in terms of stress and in terms of feeling like what you actually care about can get put on the table. So I think that collaboration is going to be really useful in Canada in many different aspects. One is, when you're talking about accessibility, there is room for and the ability to focus on disabled voices, which is the most critical thing for advancing accessibility. Development of accessibility regulations, accessibility plans, accessibility statements, all will involve communication. And really, another way to say collaboration is good communication. Relationship building for the long-term implementation of regulations and the Accessible Canada Act. Too often in traditional legal stuff, you file a lawsuit, you win or you lose, and it's kind of like a flash in the pan. But accessibility, we need to change hearts and minds, because you can make the most accessible website, mobile app, kiosk, employee software, and the next day that accessibility can be broken. So time check with myself right there. So we need long-term relationships, and we need long-term implementation of the work we're doing. And I believe collaboration can help with that. Collaboration can help dismantle fear, because people can get to know each other one-on-one or 10 on 10. People can get to know each other and have relationships and build trust. And something practical, accessible procurement. There's going to be a lot of conversation, both for the Accessible Canada Act, as well as many of you people will also be involved in European Accessibility Act, which has to do with product users, product buyers, talking to product sellers. And so collaboration in ensuring that procurement is accessible and products and software and tools are accessible will benefit, I believe, from collaboration. So in the United States, I have developed and practiced a type of disability rights collaboration, which we call structured negotiation. And just very briefly, this has been a way that we have been able to collaborate, cooperate without lawsuits, and often without even regulations. So I have worked in this method, structured negotiation, on talking ATMs, on accessible websites, accessible mobile apps, accessible pedestrian signals, accessible prescription labels, audio description of movie theaters, and the process has been used to help advance the rights of incarcerated disabled people. When I say worked with, what I mean is that as a lawyer, I've been able to represent and work with members of the disability community, primarily blind people and blind organizations, to approach organizations and say, this violates a law in the United States, but rather than sue you, we would like to collaborate. Well, structured negotiations those skills and those strategies we've used doesn't have to be done in a context of lawsuit, no lawsuit. Doesn't even have to have anything to do with a legal claim. It has to do with understanding the skills and strategies to get everyone around the table on the same page. So a couple big picture resources, because we have a short amount of time here, is I have a website, lflegal.com, with a lot of information on structured negotiation. You can find agreements and press releases on all these issues. And I've also written a book on the strategy, not just for lawyers, called Structured Negotiation, a Winning Alternative to Lawsuits. First came out in 2016. And the second edition was published in 2021. So if you're curious to learn more about this, either before the gathering or after the gathering, I invite you to check out those resources. So how does it work? How does it work? And why do I think it can work in the context that you all will find yourself advancing accessibility in Canada? First of all, disabled people have been involved in all the negotiations I have done and in all the what I call accessibility convincing. So just two quick examples of some of the people I've worked with their permission. This is Jerry Coons, who's a blind activist in San Francisco, and he worked closely with the city of San Francisco and many other blind people and organizations on accessible pedestrian signals. So he is here pressing the button of an accessible pedestrian signal in San Francisco, which has vibro tactile button and also audio output. We were able to work with San Francisco without a lawsuit before there were regulations. Believe it or not, the U.S. Department of Justice still has not implemented regulations on accessible pedestrian signals, although another agency in the United States has, called the Access Board. But because of collaboration, primarily because the city, I believe, got to know the blind advocates, we're able to work with the city for installation of hundreds of accessible pedestrian signals in a process over 10 years ago that is still ongoing in the city today as they implement new signals, put them in new places. And this is a picture of another blind woman, Vita Zavali. We work with many retailers in the United States without regulations, without lawsuits, to make sure blind people could enter their PIN when using their credit card in a checkout stand. And this is a picture of Vita and at a retail store where we went with the lawyers and the companies, and people could really understand how it is that blind people pay for things with a credit card and the privacy violations that happen when there is no way to independently, at that time it was through tactile keypads, enter a PIN. So these are just two of many. And, you know, I just have so many stories of companies telling me afterwards they have absolutely no idea how disabled people engage with their products, with their technology. So if there's only one thing you can do to encourage collaboration, if you have to leave now and you never come back to this talk, you know, getting people in a room together where people with disabilities can share, explain, lead, explain what it is and show, not just explain, show. Show is worth 1,000 words. And that has been one of the secrets of collaboration, not so secret. For me, and I think it will be useful for all the ways in which you in Canada are developing regulations and implementing them for the long term. Attitude is crucial in collaboration. This is a picture of a shark, open mouth, leaping out of the water with big teeth showing, and the background song, the background theme music is the theme music from Jaws. I put a big red X over that. I can't get the X without the music. I don't want to talk over the music. So I have found that it is not necessary and can be counterproductive to be a shark. A lot of times when we are fighting for civil rights, and accessibility, digital accessibility is a civil right of people with disabilities, we feel like we have to be strong and hard and loud and get our point across. And I have found that being like a shark, which is being scary, being fearful, being angry, being bloodthirsty is not the best way to speak and communicate and understand people across the table when you're trying to get something from them. So you can check yourselves as you go forward in developing and implementing accessibility across Canada and see, what works best for you. Does it work to be a shark, or could we do a mind shift and be, as you'll see in a minute, more like a dolphin? So yeah, don't be a shark. And also, we don't need to act like sharks. This is a very cute picture of a goldfish with a shark fin attached to it, because a lot of us inside, we know we want to, we don't want to be aggressive. We don't want to raise our voices. We don't want to criticize and say negative things. But we feel somehow that we have to behave that way. So I have a big red X on the cute little goldfish because I have found that we don't need to act like a shark. And when we don't, it's harder for other people to act like sharks against us. That's probably one of the most amazing things I've learned over the years, is that even the toughest lawyers on the other side, or product owners, or whoever you're talking to, if we disarm ourselves, very hard for them to armor up. So you don't need to be a shark. You don't need to act like a shark. Be a dolphin instead. So these are two cute dolphins. They have fish in their mouths because they just worked together to get fish out of this plastic tubing, which is between them. And this is the National Geographic experiment. You can look it up online, dolphins and fish and National Geographic, because dolphins collaborate, dolphins communicate. Instead of those teeth, there's a recording I have here of very cute sounding dolphin communication with each other. There's a lot of things written about dolphins, and I have adopted the dolphin as my icon or spirit animal, and talking about collaboration, because as a lawyer, there's a lot of lawyers are like shark jokes, and lawyers think they need to be like sharks. And a lot of us are so passionate, myself included, about accessibility. Sometimes we can go into that shark mode. So I believe in being a dolphin, and this is what I call dolphin skills: active patience and empathy. For active patience, I have an image here of a blind surfer. He's a third generation big wave surfer from Brazil. His name is Derek Rabelo. He has a movie about him. You can look it up. It's, I think it's Rabelo. And I just got this idea, like, he can be so patient waiting for a wave out in the middle of the ocean. We can be patient too, not sitting around doing nothing, but understanding that for real change, we need real buy-in. And especially when we're dealing with big government institutions, big private sector institutions, change doesn't happen overnight. And we have to trust a process where, if we give people tools and information and relationships, it may take them time. It may take them time to give us what they need, but in the end, they will. Also, empathy. Empathy to me is a very important collaboration skill and accessibility. It is not sympathy. Sometimes those two words are confused. Sympathy has no place in a conversation about disability equity, disabled inclusion in tech. But I like empathy because it allows you to think about, well, what are they thinking? And try to unpack what they're thinking so we can explain why, whatever they're thinking, we need accessibility. And for that, I have a great image here. It's a still from a movie from The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. The woman has a gun. I don't like violent images, but it's not a violent gun. It's a point of view gun, and you aim it at someone and they get your point of view. If only it were that easy. It is not that easy, but we can work with clear communication and empathy to try to understand what everyone around the table is thinking, and help people understand what we're thinking and what we need. Don't make assumptions. Don't make assumptions and explore fear. This is a picture of somebody wiping off windows, because there's a wonderful quote that says, your assumptions are your windows on the world. Wipe them off now and then so you can see clearly. It's a little visual, but the idea is true, visual or not visual, that we make so many assumptions about people, and people make assumptions about us. First and foremost, people make assumptions about what disabled people can and cannot do. We need to break down those assumptions that other people have about us and that we have about other people, because otherwise we are not going to be able to communicate in a way that's long lasting. Exploring fear. Fear is a liar, is what this picture said. And that has been my experience. You know, when you're doing the work on something, you do the work, years go by. When you write a book, you kind of have to say, what are themes in all these years? And one of the themes that came to me as I was writing my book is like, a lot of people had a lot of fear that we were able to break down with communication and relationship. And on the accessible pedestrian signal that we saw Jerry Coons's picture, the traffic engineers were afraid that a blind person would step off the curb and get hit by a car or worse. If we were in an adversarial situation, if we were in our shark mode, we would have said, what are you talking about? Right now, you give no information to a blind person because everything's visual. But because we needed to explore fear and break down fear, we had blind people in the room explaining to the traffic engineers what it was like to cross a street, to cross it at a crosswalk or not know where the crosswalk is without any information. And that broke down the fear because, you know, the traffic engineers, they were for people's safety. And once we were able to get past the fear, explaining why it's safer to have an accessible pedestrian signal, then we were able to get them. Same with pharmacists who were afraid of talking prescription labels because the blind person might mishear and take the wrong prescription. Well, if you give a blind person a prescription label in print, they're basically getting no information. Worked with the pharmacist directly, relationship building and structured negotiation. Didn't need lawyers there. The lawyers are way in the back seat, sometimes meetings without lawyers. And I think these are things that we can all do as we move accessibility forward, whatever our role. Find the yes. I love this quote by a woman named B. Smith. I stood on a mountain of no's for one yes. You know, when something's finished, you've got the result you want, it looks, oh, that was easy. No, none of this is easy. That's another thing we have to remember. I should have written this down. It's not easy. We get a lot of no's. We get a lot of no's before we get to the yeses. And we cannot let the no's stop us. We have to keep going. We have to stand on a mountain of no's for one yes. And I can't tell you the number of times we first approach a company and they're like, we don't have to do it. It's too expensive. It's too hard. We don't have the time. The law doesn't require it. And then there'll be like a little sliver of hope, but we're willing to talk to you. And that is the first yes we need to build the other yeses. Practicing equanimity. This is an image of a person, an illustration of a person standing as storm rages around them. And to me, equanimity is just being able to stay still in the storm amidst all the no's. Because once we have the skills to do that, which can be, some of us have it come naturally in our personalities, others may have a meditation practice or some sort of mindfulness practice. You know, once we can do that and let the other person rage, and then when they see that we're calm and we're not raging, we're focused, laser focused on the accessibility needs and the accessibility challenges and the accessibility wins that we're going for, then the collaboration can continue. So practicing equanimity is very important. Listening well. Listening well. This is an image of two people, a young child and an older woman, a teacher, her mother, both are African American, speaking in sign language as an image for listening, because we have to listen. If we had more time together, I'd give us some listening exercises. You know, when you go home tonight, see if you feel listened to, or see if you're really listening. Are you asking questions back? Are you on your phone when someone's trying to tell you a story? We need to have whoever we're talking to advance accessibility know that we are listening because we want to be listened to as well. Grounded optimism. This is a picture of Helen Keller, famous deafblind woman who many people don't know, went on to be an incredible writer and activist and civic leader, a socialist, very progressive. And she said, optimism is the faith that leads to achievement. Nothing can be done without hope and confidence, which is not to say just be, starry-eyed and think everything's going to work out great, but it's holding onto the belief that if we do these things, if we are intentional about what accessibility do we need for full inclusion of people with disabilities in every single aspect of the digital world, and we're intentional about how we go about getting it, seeing the value of collaboration for long-lasting success. If that's what optimism is, that's why I like to call it grounded optimism. It's grounded in what's gone on before. That's why I like to share the stories of structured negotiation. And it's grounded in the practices that allow us to be optimistic. Be kind, be curious, be flexible. I love this image of two wheelchair dancers. This is Alice Shepard on the bottom. She's the head of a kinetic light dance troupe. She's a Black dancer, uses a wheelchair. In this image, she's on the ground with her hands up in her wheelchair, and someone looks like they are literally flying over her with their body on her wheels and their wheels higher up. Just very powerful to show the idea of flexibility. We may have in mind how exactly accessibility is going to go, what's going to go first, what's not. We have to be flexible as we listen. I have another picture up here, an illustration, colored illustration of two people looking at each other, and you can see in their brains they are thinking about what the other person's needs are. So be kind, be curious, be flexible. And the last one I want to share with you, although I just thought of another one, which is celebrate small steps. Should have put that in here, but I'll say it here. Whatever part of accessibility you're working on, regulations, implementation, accessibility statements, accessibility plans, there will be things along the way to celebrate. And, when we started with Talking ATMs, we wanted every ATM in the country to be talking so blind people could use it, one at every location. When we got the first 5 in the United States in 1999, we celebrated that with big press events. And shout out to Canada, who actually had the first Talking ATMs in the entire world, as far as I know, thanks to advocacy of blind people in Canada. That was 2 years before we got them in the United States, and we learned from our Canadian colleagues. So the last one I want to share is Find the Lion. There is a cat looking in a mirror. They don't see themselves as a little cat. They see themselves as a lion. Everybody, every person, every organization, every sector see themselves in a certain way. And our job as accessibility advocates is to show and explain how accessibility and digital inclusion in tech for disabled people, how that fits with how they see themselves. That requires a lot of listening and relationship building to understand, and research to understand how they see themselves. We have to know who we're talking to. We have to understand how are we speaking to their needs. We don't have to agree that they meet their needs, but you will find many people will be upfront. We care about privacy. We want to protect security. We want to enhance our customer experience. We want our citizens to feel included. All of these things, every single one of them, require accessibility if they are going to be true statements for people with disabilities. So how are you building trust and relationships so you can tell this to people and they don't feel you're lecturing them, but you're opening the door for them to have a better understanding of how disabled people fit into their own image of themselves? And how are you moving towards your goals when you're talking to them and honoring the lion, even if you might not think it's true? So that's what I wanted to share about collaboration. I hope it is useful. I really welcome your feedback on collaborative skills that you may use in any aspect of advancing accessibility in Canada. I have my name on the closing slide, Lainey Feingold. Again, my website is lflegal.com. You can reach me at lf@lflegal.com. And I have a picture of my book, Structured Negotiation, A Winning Alternative to Lawsuits. This is the digital version. It's showing on an e-reader. You can see the title and my name. We have a foreword by Haben Girma and a cover quote by Jenny Leigh Fleury of Microsoft. So enjoy the conference. I hope this is helpful. Thank you so much.